All right, well, it's about time to get rolling here. So if anybody else shows up as we are rolling along here, they can just kind of jump in. So welcome everybody. I'd like to wish you a good morning and happy Wednesday here. Welcome to the sixth session of our Re-engaging the Rural Economy virtual roundtable series. And as you know, today's focus is on the service business sector, with a discussion on best practices as we ramp up our economy here in West Michigan. This has been a great virtual roundtable series so far. We had 3 great sessions: resources and talent, the manufacturing sector, and community leadership. And then this week, we're pivoting squarely towards our small business sector. We did retail, independent retail on Monday, and restaurants and dining yesterday, and have been very informative. I've definitely learned a lot for sure. My name is Travis Alden, Director of Business Development at The Right Place and the lead for our rural team. And just as kind of a quick introduction for today, the purpose of this roundtable is twofold. We realize the value in connecting you with your peers, not just locally, but also regionally as well. We all work in rural areas of West Michigan and certainly have many things in common. So if I could say one kind of undercurrent for today, let's learn from each other so we can all be as prosperous as possible as we re-engage with our economy. The intent of this session today is to be an interactive discussion, not really a sit and get type of webinar. So the more we can all share ideas and what we're doing out there to be successful, the more valuable this time will be for everybody. And then secondly, our discussion today will help us at The Right Place, our rural team, in our economic development work and identifying challenges and obstacles and opportunities out there for businesses in our communities. So thanks again for being here. So you may know that the state of Michigan is broken up into 10 prosperity regions. The West Michigan region, region 4 there on the west side of Michigan is our service area. And then the map there on the left-hand side, the 6 counties in red are the ones directly served by The Right Place. And our rural team is for the 5 outside Kent County. And speaking of our rural team, this is a good opportunity to introduce my small but mighty team at The Right Place. So Julie, Jody, and Kathy Jo, you guys want to introduce yourselves real quick?
Good morning, Julie Burrell here in Otsego County.
Good morning, Jody Nichols, and I support Oceana and Lake counties.
Hi there, Kathy Jo Vanderlaan. I'm feet on the street in Montcalm County, and I'm a little jealous of Jody's background. Is that real?
It's a real Lake Michigan beach, but I'm not sitting at it right now.
Glad you're all here.
Thinking mode. Yeah. Thanks everybody. And as I said, I'm Travis, the lead of the rural team, and I also service Ionia County as well. And we're very pleased to have with us a special guest co-host today, Marie Elliott from the Michigan Small Business Development Center. Marie, you want to say hi real quick? You're probably muted. There you go.
Hi, everyone.
All right.
Can you hear
looking
me?
forward to it. Yep.
Okay.
All right. Looking forward to some good discussion. Just a couple of housekeeping rules before we move forward. Please mute yourself during discussion in order to limit background noise. I'll utilize the mute all feature if we need to. If you're unfamiliar with Zoom, you can move around where the little videos of everybody are. For the purposes today, especially as Marie is doing her piece, you might want to switch to speaker view, just so you can view more of the presentation. It'll be kind of up in the right-hand side. We had about 70 folks registered for the session today. So just to keep things moving smoothly, if you have any questions or comments or anything like that, just send them in the chat feature, either to me privately, or if it's something you want to share with everybody, you can go ahead and put it out to everybody. If at any time you need to exit the meeting, feel free to do so. We'll be following up with an email to all attendees afterwards with a recording of this session, as well as some additional information as a resource for everybody. We've been doing our best to keep these roundtables to about an hour, but in some situations we've had some good, healthy conversation continuing past that hour. So if there's still good stuff happening, we might continue a little bit longer. But like I said, if you need to jump off, feel free. We won't be offended. And if I call on you with a question, if you can just kind of quickly introduce yourself just for some context, that would be helpful. So moving forward, I think it's safe to say that no industry has been immune to the impacts of COVID-19, especially our small businesses. And I'm really looking forward to today's discussion as one that'll hopefully help everybody navigate this really complicated issue of reopening in order for us to be as prosperous as possible. So Kathy Jo, would you mind doing a quick introduction of Marie before she moves on to her presentation?
Sure. Marie, I will be kind, I promise. Travis asked for somebody to introduce you, and I figured we'd known each other a couple days. Marie is a certified Small Business Development Center consultant for the West Michigan Region 4. She's provided sessions for businesses at the Mount Calm Community College Center, as well as meeting clients there. Marie has always been responsive to requests, and I never hesitate to send business folks to her for some wise counsel. While she is considered somebody who can cover all areas, the Small Business Development Center is so wonderful in that they have a huge cadre of folks who can deal with specific issues as well. So at any rate, Marie, I hand it over to you and look forward to what you have to tell us.
All right. Well, thank you, Kathy Jo. I appreciate that. I recognize several faces and names on the call today, but not everyone. So would just like to say good morning to everyone and thank Julie and Travis for the invite to present the information today. And my screen would not work, so I'm going to ask Travis if you'll advance to the next slide. All right, thank you. So for those of you that I've not met or that you're unaware of the SBDC program and services, I'll just give a brief overview of the SBDC program and the services. So for the state of Michigan, the Michigan SBDC is a statewide network, and we're funded in part through cooperative agreements with primarily 3 different funding sources. The largest funding source being the SBA, the United States Small Business Administration, but we also receive funding from the Michigan Economic Development Corporation and then matching funds from local network partners in each of the regions. So you'll notice there on the map, it was similar to Travis's map, and the red area is Region 4. And for the Small Business Development Center for the West Michigan region, which is the team that I am part of, is 13 counties. So, oops, if you can go back one slide, Travis. So the 13 counties that we cover is all of the ones that are in the red area. You'll notice, however, though, we have 11 regional offices across the state that actually cover all 83 counties. And we have nearly 1,000 SBDC centers across the country. So there's a small business development center in most of our states, if not all of them. So if you're actually doing business in some of the other states, that's good to know. I usually will recommend clients out to those states if they have multiple locations, and just to connect with the individual and the business consultant in that area, because they're going to better understand the state and local requirements within that area. The Grand Valley State University is the host for the West Michigan Regional Office, and they are also our lead center that provides oversight to all of the 11 regional offices. All right, Travis, you can advance to the next slide, please. So our primary services that the SBDC offers is no-cost one-on-one business consulting. We also have business education, and we have information-based planning through market research. And then we have a technology team that provides technology commercialization. I want to speak a little bit to the no-cost one-on-one business consulting. As I mentioned, I recognize many of you on the Zoom meeting today, and I cover 7 of the 13 counties. So I travel generally throughout my counties. Obviously, right now we're all working remotely, and I'm a little bit unique from some of my colleagues within the West Michigan Regional Office in that I don't actually have primary office space in Grand Rapids. I travel into Grand Rapids usually twice a month for staff meetings or things that are going on with the lead center in my regional office. But I actually use who I call strategic partners within my 7 counties, like Kathy Jo, Julie, Jody Nichols. Michigan Works. I use Michigan Works quite a bit to actually meet with new startups. I use public libraries at times. So if it's not an existing business owner that has their own brick and mortar location, I oftentimes am partnering with those individuals within the communities and using those locations. I failed to mention the Stream in Nuevo. That's another location that I'm often at. So the business education, well, let me back up. Whenever you meet with a business consultant, there's not a cost associated to that. So it doesn't matter if it's face-to-face, if it's a phone meeting, if it's a virtual go-to meeting, there's never a cost associated to that. And primarily that's because, 95% of the funding are federal dollars from the Small Business Administration. The second bullet there, the business education. We've always had a series of business education, but right now we also have a COVID-19 specific page for, and I don't have a slide for that, Travis. I can go to that, I guess I can't. I'll direct you to that page with my inability to share my own screen. If you want to look at that, the business education is at sbdcmichigan.org. And if you're interested in the COVID-19 webinars, we have some that are recorded and we also have some that are still taking place. Today's topic is going to be on employee work share and return to work, restoring that employment. I believe it's at 2 o'clock. So if you're interested in the COVID-19, you'll click on at the very top of our homepage, it'll say learn more under the COVID-19 section. That'll bring you to those workshops. But if you're actually looking for other types of education, we have an on-demand library of how to start writing a business plan, legal aspects of running a business. And those can be found on our homepage by selecting the button that says register for a workshop. The market research, you actually will work through a business consultant to request market research. And that comes out of Grand Valley State University. It's student-based and faculty-led, and usually takes about 10 to 12 days for turnaround. We have been experiencing a little longer just because our students are not on campus, but they've made some great improvements over the last 6 weeks in getting that research back out to the clients. Okay, Travis, you can advance to the next slide, please. So that's it for the Small Business Development Center. I've actually been with the Small Business Development Center on and off for about 15 years. At one point, I used to be the regional director for the Mid-Michigan region, and I took a little bit of a break and was the director of human resources for community college locally near where I live. And right now, I'm a full-time business consultant and have been for the last 7 years with the West Michigan Regional Office in a couple different capacities. One is a full-time employee of Grand Valley State University, which is what I am currently. And I've also been an independent consultant owning my own consulting business where I contracted with not just one of the regional offices, but multiple regional offices. So with that being said, let's get started on the topic of discussion for today, which is, as Travis mentioned, the service businesses. And in preparation for today's talking points, I kind of created this 4-step approach to re-engage, which is communicate, rethink, prepare, and operate. So I feel that regardless of what your service-based business is, if you're a salon service, which I heard many of you on the call when you were doing some of the introductions, home repairs, massage therapy, childcare, personal training, fitness. So I feel like this 4-step approach for re-engagement is going to apply for any of those service businesses. So Travis, if you can advance to the next slide, please. So I love this image because with COVID-19, we've all been forced into working remotely. Even though I was somewhat used to that, I have to say, my background, you'll notice my SBDC banner in the back. I don't generally have that up in my location I'm at, but I live with 3 teenagers, 2 twins that are freshmen, and 1 that's a junior in high school, as well as a middle schooler. So I used to use my nice breakfast nook area when I would be working at home by myself, and I've been banned to my bedroom. My home office moved in to that location. So I decided to put up my SBDC banner in the background for today's discussion. So anyways, back to the image on the communications. we've all been, forced to work remotely. Many small businesses are using these platforms that you see on the screen to communicate with their existing client base as well as reaching new clients. If you're not doing that, that would be one of my recommendations, to work with a business consultant to get you more of an online presence and using these social media platforms. Next slide, please. All right. So customers are, as some of you in the personal service business may refer to them as clients. So I kind of put both in my PowerPoint for you today. So the customers and clients are really the lifeblood of your business. So keeping them informed is critical at this time. So I feel like it's really important for you to communicate your company's ongoing story to customers as well as suppliers and employees. Keep regular contact with the clients, employees, and suppliers, letting them know what you're doing, what are your hours of operations if they've changed. If you're changing the way you operate your business, make sure that you're communicating that with your customers, suppliers, and employees. I thought it was pretty cool. Travis had mentioned, sharing some best practices. My bullet there where I've got demonstrate things clients can do on their own. Some of the salons in my area have been putting together kind of a beauty basket and shipping it out as a beauty kit. And it contains a shampoo, a conditioner, moisturizing treatment with some kind of instructions of what they can do right now, to try to keep their hair healthy. Another really cool is my yoga studio started offering yoga and fitness, doing a virtual group physical activity. So again, we're all kind of being forced into this virtual remote work if we were not already familiar with it, but it's a good opportunity for you to be able to demonstrate some of those things to your clients that maybe they can do on their own right now before you're open. Let them know when you intend to resume operations. For the salon and some of the services, you're still 2 weeks out. So, let them know what your intentions are. Some of the other service businesses, construction, flooring industry, my son and husband work in both of those industries, and they're now back to work. So some of them you may already be back, you may already be re-engaging. And for those of you that are not, now's the time to still communicate with your client and customer base on when you plan on resuming your operations. It's really important to also include your employees in communicating to your employees and making them part of your plan. If they become part of your plan, they're going to feel more empowered and feel more of a sense of belonging in what the business and organization is doing. So explaining the new procedures that you're going to have to be implementing to protect the health of not only the clients that you serve, but the employees as well. And then thank your clients for being loyal customers. Next slide, please. One of the other things while we're waiting for that next slide that I'll mention too, I forgot to mention kind of the healthcare. Somebody was on the line in regards to physical therapy, I believe. Telehealth is becoming, it's really taking off in some of those medical practices, physical therapy, some family practices where patients are not wanting to go in for some of their routine visits. A lot of people are getting on board with the telehealth right now, and that's an opportunity. All right. So the next is rethinking your business model. So I put in this more of a question, format is, will your customers come back? Have you thought about that? Are there new clients that you can attract? Will you have to change the way you're performing your service? When we get into the operations section, when you're thinking about, will you have to change the way you perform your service? For many of you will. For the salon service, what I'm hearing in that industry is if your stations are not 6 feet apart, you may have to consider doing staggered hours, or where maybe somebody, one of the stylists, a cosmetologist is doing their clientele at a certain time frame and another one does theirs in the afternoons or the evenings in order to provide that social distancing. So thinking about what those changes will be and how you're performing your services once you reengage is really important, because then you can begin to develop a plan and then implement the plan when that time comes. Obviously, with some of these changes, there's going to be additional costs that you're going to incur. So when you think about the mask and the PPE that you may have to provide not only to your employees, but to your clients as well, how are you going to provide that? I'll use the example of Menards, because my son, who's 16, got a job there about 3 weeks before COVID-19. And he is just a carry out, a young 16-year-old, first time employment for him. And they've implemented, policy that you're not allowed to shop in the store unless you have a mask on. It got to a point where they actually had to hire security to man the front door, because there were a number of the clients or customers that were not complying with that. And they've kind of taken the stance that if you're not willing to wear the mask, they're asking you to leave. It's not an option. It's mandatory there. But they're also not paying for that mask. They're charging, so you can wear your own mask in, or they're charging $1. So they're providing masks, making them available to their customers, but they're charging $1 for that. What their cost is, I don't know. But those are some things that you need to think about, is what are the additional costs that you're going to incur associated to some of the changes that you're going to have to now implement. And then the last, I don't know why I put it last, because to me, I think it's probably one of the most important, is putting together a cash flow projection for the next 3 to 12 months. And I would recommend doing a 12 months. Oftentimes I feel small businesses get in a routine where they're not necessarily, they're working in their business and not on the business. They rely on their accountants and CPAs, which is great. I highly recommend small businesses owners to have a CPA accountant on their team. So if you're not the one that's actually putting together the cash projections, I would recommend that you work with your bookkeeper or your accounting firm to assist in that. That's also something that the SBDC can assist with. You'll notice when I get to my last slide that I've got a link to our Excel spreadsheet to assist with that. And that's for the ones that don't already have something in place. Certainly if you've got a working relationship with your accountant, as I mentioned, and some tools you're already using, those are good to use. But oftentimes I believe people don't use their financial statements to make good strategic business decisions even prior to COVID-19. So now's an opportunity and almost a necessity to pull up the cash flow, look at where you're currently at and where you believe you're going to be in 3 to 12 months from an income standpoint and an expense standpoint to assist with that. Next slide, please. While we're advancing to that, a couple other things that I'll just mention is, consider different ways to continue bringing in revenue. A lot of people don't want to exchange cash at this point, which is hard to believe, right? Cash is king, always has been, but there are some places that, you may need to look to a touch-free or remote payments and implementing maybe some prepayments. And if you're not already doing that, there's a lot of different sources out there that are available. Again, I would recommend reaching out, working either with myself within the 7 counties that I cover, or one of my colleagues in regards to that. We have a list of some of those different remote payment sources that you could be using. So the next is prepare to reengage. So the CDC and OSHA is a really good source for information regarding this. The other area that I would highly recommend is when you're looking at reviewing the reentry guidelines is to look to your industry association. Right now they don't really have good guidance out there that I'm aware of for the salon industry in particular. However, there are some sources, if you aren't getting it from your industry association, is just maybe Googling some of the other states that have already done the re-engagement. So for example, I was able to find frequently asked questions in the Florida area that spoke to different things like can we allow group a group to come in and have you know, some styles done? And the answer to that was yes, but you'd have to have a stylist for each person, and you'd still have to maintain that social distancing. So if you can't find some guidelines for that, I would look to the CDC and OSHA. They may not be industry specific, but they've got a really good overview for you know, guidance for cleaning and disinfecting and the re-engagement. So some of the things that you need to consider is, how are you going to clean and disinfect your work areas and tools? Are you going to have to reconfigure your workspace to allow for that proper social distancing, like I mentioned with the salons, if your chairs are too close to each other? Are you going to, do you have the space to, you know, make it to where you have that social distancing, or do you need to do the staggered hours with your staff? Purchasing personal protection equipment, PPE and supplies. Put up signage communicating the new rules in visible locations. Don't expect that your customers are automatically going to know what you expect of them. So I use the example of if you're, you know, going to be expecting the client to wait in their car or outside before they come in because you need to disinfect the salon chair in between appointments, you know, let them know that you're going to call them, that you really don't want them to come in. There's really not a waiting area as there once used to be. So make sure that you're putting up that signage and you're communicating the new rules in visible locations. Not only do you want to do that for your clients and your customers, but you really want to do that to for your employees as well. So not only should you be training your employees on the proper use of PPE and safe work practices, but you should be displaying some workplace posters on instructions on how to clean and disinfect properly. Next slide, please. All right, so prepare to re-engage, or sorry, yeah, operations. All right, so under the operations, you really are need to determine, what are your new work hours? Will you have those staggered shifts? Are you going to limit the number of people that are inside to maintain that appropriate social distancing? They're recommending in the salon and in like physical therapy and office space settings to remove all the unnecessary, frequently touched items from the waiting room, such as magazines and newspapers. You're really wanting to minimize the opportunity or oh, for lack of better words, you know, it's an impulsive, you know, so if there's a magazine sitting there and somebody's sitting waiting, they have a tendency to pick it up. They sometimes don't think, oh, that's right, I probably shouldn't have touched that. So remove those so that way that opportunity is not there. Require everyone to wear PPE at all times. That may be just a mask. It may be mask, gloves, and an aprons. It really just depends on your specific service-based business. In my husband's, he does custom flooring and custom ceramic tile jobs, primarily in residential housing. So he's currently wearing a mask if he's working in someone's home and they're there. They're also communicating with those residents and that customers on what they expect, you know, so, you know, keeping in mind that he's protecting himself while he's in someone else's home, but he's also respectful of what they have for expectations in getting that service job still completed. My son in the construction industry, they do a lot of commercial jobs. There are times that he doesn't have to wear his mask. He's outside, he's doing roofing, and he's not around his other co-workers. So there are times that he doesn't have to wear any PPE, and there are times that he does. So just making sure that that's available and what the requirements are for you is really important, and then communicating those. For the salon industry in particular, they're recommending for the cleaning and sanitizing in between appointments that you allow 15 minutes. Sometimes when you're doing your planning and your scheduling, it's easy to forget, like, oh geez, I forgot to leave a 15-minute cushion to do that, right? So you want to keep your clients in mind too, that depending on what their day looks like, they may not have you know, an extra 15, 20 minutes to wait for you to clean. So making sure that you're already building that into your day is important, because it allows you the time to be able to do the necessary cleaning and sanitizing in between those appointments. And then I had already provided the example of informing clients on all new procedures ahead of time, you know, so that way they know what to expect when they come to your place of business. And then show appreciation for your clients. All right, next slide, please. So the last slide that we're going to get to is basically a resource page. And in that resource page, I've included the CDC reopening guidance. I've included a link to the Occupational Health and Safety Administration, OSHA guidance, Right Places catalog for PPE suppliers, and then, as I mentioned, the cash flow template with the SBDC. And next slide, Travis, before we get to some questions and discussion. So this is my contact information. You can reach me by my cell phone, or you can reach me by email. I should have included our website to this contact information, but I'll provide it right now. It's SBDC Michigan, all spelled out, .org. When you're on the website, if you want a request for business consulting, the easiest way to do that is to go to our website and click the tab that says Get Started, and there will be an option that says Request Business Consulting. When you do that, it'll provide a map that similar to the image that you saw earlier, and a drop-down menu where you'll select the county that your business is located within. If you're located within the 7 rural counties that are north of Grand Rapids, that's my covered area. So your request for consulting will go back to my regional office in Grand Rapids, and then they'll send me an email and let me know that I have a new request, and I'll follow up via email to get you on my calendar. Currently, I've been spending a good amount of my time on the relief programs, fielding a lot of calls in regards to the EIDL Advance and the Michigan Small Business Relief Loan and Grant Program, the EIDL Loan, the EIDL Advance. So it's kind of refreshing to get some of this re-engagement conversation going, and something outside of the relief programs. But with that, Travis, I'll turn it back over to you. I'm done with my presentation and open it up for some discussion.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Marie. Definitely appreciate that good overview and some good tips for folks as they move forward. I know this is something that's central to a lot of our conversations in our rural communities, just in terms of the best way to move forward, and that's a good framework for that. One question, I'll just kind of kick off the questions here. One big topic that was in a meeting I was a part of yesterday was just kind of a resource for guidance for small businesses regarding their own like policies they would put in place regarding, you know, masks, don't wear masks, different PPE, you know, separation, that sort of thing, once they're allowed to open. You know, just to put it bluntly, things are pretty polarized out there. And I think there's some concern out there that in order for folks to come into into our businesses, they have to have a comfort level, both with the safety of policies that I've put in place, but that everybody's going to follow that as well. Do you have any thoughts on that in terms of, you know, guidance for folks?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it could look different depending on, you know, what your business is, but, you know, it may vary for you. You know, like I had mentioned earlier with that PPE equipment, you know, so I would recommend that you start to kind of create a checklist. There's a lot of good, like I don't know if any of you guys have seen the Kroger Blueprint. .com, which, or sorry, that's where you can locate it. It's sharing what we've learned, a blueprint for businesses. That's been a good resource for some people in some small businesses in regards to what will some of those new procedures be and how are we going to implement them. I don't know if that answers your question. I haven't necessarily seen a guide, but I have worked with a number of clients in regards to these conversations and creating what they feel that that's going to look like. And we start with a checklist and then move from there into a plan and then implementing the plan, which in part goes back to the communicating to not only the employees, but to your customers as well.
Any other questions out there or comments, anything that folks want to share?
Yeah, this is Julie. I just wanted to reiterate the importance of the communication and just kind of share some experiences. I actually this morning had to take my dog to the vet. And so I pull up to the office or whatever, and I'm like, okay, are we going in? Are we not going in? How is this working? And they have this big, huge sign on the door that says to just text them when they arrive, and then they'll come out and get your dog and bring it in. So then, it was just a really easy process for me to be able to figure that out. And then, in regards to like maybe salons or everything, good thing I don't have a good quality camera, so you guys can't see how terrible I need to get to my salon. But, the one that I go to, they've been communicating really well, just kind of giving everyone an update at, yep, your appointment is going to have to be rescheduled, or as soon as we reopen, we'll be sure to communicate with you and that kind of a thing. So definitely the communication is going to be the most important thing, I think.
Thanks, Julie. I would agree with that. I actually have my children participate in 4-H program, and we raise sign during the 4-H time frame. And even though the fair has been canceled this year, my children already had their projects, and so we purchased our feed from a local feed provider, and they had the same. They had a sign on a large sign on their window saying, please stay in your car, please call the number, let us know that you're here. If you haven't placed your order in advance for the feed that you're here to pick up, we really don't want you to get out of the car. We can place the order at the time that you're calling, or you can call it in advance, but they still want you to call once you get there so they know that you're there to pick it up. If you're in your pickup truck, they just load it into your vehicle for you. If not, pop your back hatch and they load it in. And they're obviously moving to that remote payment as well, where they're wanting you to pay via credit or debit. So there's not that exchange of cash, and minimizing the touch with those things and the social distancing.
Ed, were you going to say something real quick?
I was,
Yeah.
if I could just jump in. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Nicole. Go ahead, Nicole.
Okay, just real quick, I shared a link. I'm from the economic development team in Hart, Michigan, and we polled our community to see, how do you actually feel about reopening? What sort of safety precautions do you expect to see? What makes you feel comfortable? Just that sort of consumer perspective. But I shared the link. It's kind of interesting results. People aren't as fearful as we thought. So some good feedback from our community there, if you want to check that link out.
Nicole, were you saying that folks were maybe less concerned than you thought going in? You were surprised by that?
Yeah, very surprised. I think sorry I have bad internet connection, but I'm surprised at the results, at how comfortable they are shopping when we reopen. And most surprisingly, the question about how do you feel about large outdoor gatherings, most people are perfectly fine with that, which was very surprising.
Yeah, Travis, this is Ed. Yeah, I was just going to say naturally some of this, as things reopen, are going to be dictated by by the state in terms of like how many people you can have in the facility, things of that nature. But in terms of internal procedures, we are finding it across the board. Some is very stringent, like the Menard situation, where they're requiring it's mandatory. You can literally refuse, right now, to serve people who don't adhere to the executive order of wearing masks. But most stores don't want to go that far. But then we've also some personal businesses, if you kind of come inside, some has even taken the stance to have people sign a waiver that says, you can't, you're kind of maybe a little bit at risk, and you can't hold us accountable or sue us, if you wind up catching something. I don't know if people want to go that far, but certainly we're just asking everybody to do what they think is prudent, for the protection of themselves, their employees, and their clients or customers, particularly They want to make them feel comfortable and safe coming into those environments. And the more you can do that and the more you communicate how you're doing it, we think the better people will feel about coming and using your services.
Yeah, I think communication is going to be key. That's for sure. Eric, you had a question regarding using funds from the various assistance programs out there for some of these modifications. This is a great venue because SBDC have been in up to their eyeballs with all the PPP and disaster loan assistance and all that sort of thing. So you want to ask your question?
Yeah, I know it was brought up on the meeting yesterday, I believe, with the restaurants. They were talking about guards and thermometers and all the other added expense for upgrades because of COVID. But the PPP loans, I believe they mentioned, would not cover it, or from what they've seen. So I was just wondering if you'd have any insight into that for other business owners.
Sure, I can speak to that. So depending on, which relief program that you have, most of them are in place for those working capital needs. So, the utilities, the supplies, your inventory. So I would say, yes, you certainly could use some of those funds, like, for example, the idle advance, if you were the recipient of an idle advance. The idle advance was based off from the number of employees that you have, and it was $1,000 per employee up to a maximum of $10,000. Now, there are some layers of complexity that we're still waiting on final ruling from the SBA in regards to if you received a PPP and an idle advance. Because the PPP, in answering your question, Eric, it could be used. Well, actually, it cannot be. It's mortgage interest payments, utilities, or I might be saying this wrong, Ed, you can jump in too, but rent, mortgage interest payment, and utilities, I believe, if you decide not to use it towards payroll. Now, the PPP program was primarily intended to be used to bring back your employees, bring them back and even pay them if they're not working. So for example, my husband's company, small business he works for, they do small business installation or flooring installation and custom ceramic tile jobs. And he had been off since March 24th and just returned to work last week. He received his full paycheck for that full period of time, and they applied and received the PPP, and they have full intentions to provide their payroll reporting documentations back to their lender. And as long as they've spent 75% of those funds on their payroll or payroll related expenses such as sick pay, vacation, commissions, tips, then the whole loan will be forgiven. Now, if you use it for something other than that and you use it on your rent or your mortgage interest, you don't meet that 75% requirement, then it becomes a loan, and it's a loan at 1% for 2 years. So that's the PPP program. However, there's a lot of different grants out there. There's the Michigan Small Business Relief Grant that the Right Place is familiar with. And that's the grant program and the loan program. And it's my understanding that was for working capital that could be used for some of those PPE supplies. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I think that
okay.
Answered most of it. I have another one too. I was talking with somebody about earlier. What about liability for businesses that open, for customers and employees that may contract COVID-19? And with this contact tracing, how reliable it is or not. If a group or an individual catches COVID-19 and then dies, or friends catch it, and etc. I mean, what kind of liabilities does that open up for the businesses?
Yeah, certainly I'm not, I'm not an attorney and I'm not an insurance provider. However, what I would say is it goes back to that, creating creating some new procedures, implementing those procedures and communicating those not only to your customers and clients, but to your employees as well, to hopefully be able to minimize some of that risk. So for example, I'm sure many of you guys have been hearing about the Owasso barber shop that opened against the executive order. I was watching a news related article on that, and he clearly is got some communication in place, letting them know that they're entering knowing that they're wanting to be there. They're wanting to get their their barber, their haircut. And he's not, he's requiring the wearing of masks, but I think he's allowing someone to come in. He's wearing a mask, but he's allowing someone to not wear a mask if they so choose. But he's clearly got that disclaimer, I guess, out there. Now, whether that's going to be upholding, I don't know from a legal standpoint. So certainly I think it's things that small businesses need to be cautious of. It's been becoming, I had the question yesterday, Eric, that same question was asked. And anytime a small business owner can minimize their risk, the best way to do that is implementing policies and procedures and then communicating those to the affected parties. I think is going to help position you in that if you get a claim against you.
Is there anybody on the call that has that has kind of bucked up that tree with either their insurance folks or an attorney? I mean, Colleen had mentioned that they've reached out to their insurance folks. I just didn't know if anybody's done that and what their response has been so far.
When we reached out to our insurance company, that was about 2 weeks ago, and there weren't any changes or weren't anything that we were having to implement differently. We are pretty particular about making sure that we have liability waivers for different events and depending on what they are. And when we are setting up an event or just in general practices, we're always looking at options or ways that people could potentially be harmed and making sure that we're, mitigating that as much as possible. And that's really all you can do. And that was really what he explained to us, that there wasn't anything specific at that time. We don't have any, requirements or special requirements as of right now, and that was about 2 weeks ago when I talked to him.
It's a great point, Colleen. I would recommend all of you, work with your insurance provider in regards to those questions to make sure that you do have adequate coverage. Because if you haven't revisited your policy in a while, now's the time to do that and have conversations on if you need some additional coverage or depending on which industry you're in and how much risk might be associated to that industry.
Any other burning questions out there right now?
I might just jump in. Jeff Wilhelm from Greenville. I talked to another pastor. Their church was prohibited with their insurance company from meeting people in the parking lot together. They were concerned with the liabilities of people getting out of their cars or too many cars in the parking lot, and just has raised too many liability concerns with their insurance company. So they ended up not meeting in their parking lot for Sunday worship.
Yeah, following the recommendations and advice from your insurance providers, your associations, and again, having your own policies in place is gonna try to help mitigate your risk for those.
Could there be some verbiage that maybe is cross industry for this that businesses can post? Maybe that's something the SBDC could figure out. Something like you're entering a facility, they're following the procedures, etc.
Sure, we can. I can look into that. We have, I don't know if any of you participated in the COVID-19 webinars. Christy Gazubal has maybe a good point of reference for me too. She's an attorney, although she'll say, I'm not your attorney. So I could reach out and just see if she's aware if there's, if that exists.
Yeah, thanks. I figure it would be a question that a lot of businesses would have, and rather than every business going to their each individual attorney, if there's something that's generalized that could be useful for all.
Yeah.
There's some general information we found from our Mid-Michigan Health Department, and that we published that on our doors from them.
Good point.
Hi, this is Ed. I had a question. Does anybody know what daycares are planning to do when things open back up? That one we struggled with in terms of how they're going to keep distancing and stuff with a daycare.
I can share what my daycare has shared with me. So they are, they have only been open for essential workers through this period. I'm not sure if they're open for everyone yet or not, but they are not letting any parents in the building at all. So they're basically meeting at the door and then taking temperature of the child at that point as well. So, you know, they're certainly not doing social distancing for the kids, but for the adults, they're not letting anybody in the building and taking those extra precautions.
It's the same thing in our child care center as well.
Any other questions out there right now? Kind of open floor right now.
Is there any guidance to more industries and the timelines? I know every time the governor keeps setting a date, then she pushes it back and then pushes it back again. So any guess on any more clarification on those would be great.
Not that I'm aware of. You know, the latest was is it 6-step phase, you know, phasing back in, but yeah, sorry, I don't have a lot of information on that. Ed, I don't know if you can speak to that.
No, we know as much as everybody else does, or at least as everybody else does. So all we can do is wait to the next governor's executive order, as Nate, just to see what she's going to allow to reopen and what particular guidelines they're going to establish in this phase-in type process. But yeah, they're looking to phase in different regions of the state, depending on how the health statistics are running in those regions.
I know Governor Whitmer talked on a radio show yesterday in Detroit that salons were probably phase 5. Which is very helpful for us because we know we have a couple times yet because we're in phase 3 right now.
So that's kind of something that I was gonna lead to in terms of the phasing in approach. Is that, you know, one of the big topics in our restaurant conversation yesterday was how to deal with reduced capacities and that sort of thing, and what doesn't make even sense for a business to open up if we can only have 25% capacity, 50% capacity. Are there any business types or folks on the call facing that same thing? I don't know, you know, if chairs in salons are far enough apart where you don't have to worry about that, or, I mean,
no, we're extremely worried about it because we have a staff in the summer of 8 stylists or estheticians or whatever, and we're a small building. You know, it's hard for us because a lot of the larger salons have square footage. We don't have a lot of square footage. So to open at this point, we can only have 2, maybe 3 people working at a time. And we're having to remove, you know, we can only use 1 shampoo bowl. We can only use 2 chairs. It's very limited. And it is that question. Is it worth opening, or will my stylists come back because they're making more on unemployment? It's very scary.
Yeah, that's where, let me jump in here. That's where really we want everybody to be looking at doing some cash flow analysis. Marie mentioned that if you can't figure out that template, just contact somebody and let us know. You need to be running a couple of different scenarios right now, you know, based on your best estimates on how much people you think you can handle per day now based on the reduced capacity and you up to your max. So running kind of best case, worst case scenarios to kind of help you figure out that exact same thing. You know, is it worth opening back up? Can you open back up? Can you actually make any money? And we need to do that month to month. It's at least a 3 to 12 month cash flow analysis based on what we know, but do 2 or 3 different scenarios. And that way we can kind of help you figure out maybe the best path to take going forward with your business operations.
And can I add, as a physical therapy clinic, we have looked at extending our hours, being open on the weekends. We're going to be open much later than we originally, you know, ever have been, in order to not have any patients crossing over, or making sure we have ample space. The other thing we discussed yesterday is looking seriously at all of our equipment. And if there are large pieces of exercise equipment that people typically use, but maybe aren't as common, we're looking at taking those physically out of our clinics to create more space, which isn't ideal. But again, it's a matter of, okay, what do we have that we really need, you know, for a majority of patients? And then these other large pieces that are taking up major floor space, is that something that we could put in temporary storage as a way to kind of accommodate right now?
Yeah, so Gail, in your situation, that's the perfect example. If you're limited on space, you're probably gonna have to look at expanding your hours. You may have to operate 7 days a week. You may have to go into, you know, the evening hours or
Right.
something that they get that same amount of clients in. You may have to do, you know, the stuff on the weekend. So that was the type of decisions that you're gonna try to make up for the lack of space that you have in your facility.
Right. We already had that in place. We're starting up. We're going to have 2 shifts. So we can expand our hours and expand our week. But so we do have that in place.
So with this, like with Gail saying that we're going to do split shifts and being a salon owner as well, a little concern of mine is, so we're not able to have the hours, and so able to, like, you know, with our financial projections and stuff, have you heard anything on whether we'll be able to still collect unemployment, or how that's going to work? Because so we choose to open back up and we're making way less money. I mean, I feel like as a salon owner, that's so irresponsible for my stylists.
We're feeling that same way. We know, you know, in the average day, our stylists make more than unemployment, but limiting, and we're not sure because we're a smaller salon. Personally, I do 2 people at a time because we do colors and things like that.
Me too.
We won't be able to. So what I would normally in an 8-hour day be able to do 16 people, I might only be able to do 4.
Right.
So that's the thing. It's our clients want to come in. That's the one thing we found out with this pandemic is everybody misses the salons. But it's how do we get them in? We have 300 people on a waiting list. You know, it's going to take us 2 months if we can only do 4 people a day.
Right. One of the things Marie mentioned today was the work share program through the state. Now we're doing a webinar on that today, but that's through the Unemployment Insurance Agency. What it allows you to do is have reduced work hours for staff, but they still can collect some on the unemployment as well to try to make that difference up. That's called a work share program. You can find out information on that under the Unemployment Insurance Agency website, or you can join in at 2 o'clock today at the SBDC webinar on that lasts about 30 minutes.
Can I ask a question about that? If a stylist is making unemployment and we open and they say they don't want to come back, normally they can't get unemployment because we're open. Can they still then with this job sharing?
Yeah, with the work share program, it allows a combination of that. I don't want to get into all the specifics because I don't want to tell you wrong, but it's designed for that, knowing that some people can't come back fully to work. If they literally refuse to come back, though, that could be an issue. That could be where they could possibly jeopardize their unemployment. If you offer them employment and they literally refuse the employment itself, you need to make sure you got good records showing that you offered them, opportunity to come back, that they didn't. I know some people may be making more money on unemployment right now, but unemployment is not going to last forever. People got to come back to work so at some point. And so but the work share program, it may be an opportunity there to kind of have a kind of a phased-in approach where they can tap into both unemployment and do some work as well, but not fully. You can't reduce the hours, but so much in the work share program. So check out the website, and if you can join in the webinar today, that would be great.
Are your stylists employees, or are they contracted?
We have all employees.
Okay, yeah. So I would agree with what Ed was saying. I'd definitely check out the work share program with unemployment because there's that appeal process. If you're requesting that they come back to work and they're declining it, they're declining employment. So even at the work share, so for the 1099, it's a little more because those individuals are considered self-employed themselves and they applied under that category. So they would have to reach out to the unemployment office themselves and have a conversation in regards to work share. And I'm not sure how that would work.
Yeah, and just kind of made a good point on the chat. Our local Michigan Works offices, both Michigan Works West Central and also West Michigan Works, are dealing with this kind of stuff on a daily basis and are great resources to help answer questions with that sort of thing. So I would definitely recommend reaching out to those folks as well about this. And we can make sure that we include some work share information in our follow-up email to everybody after this session. But it is afternoon. It's amazing how quickly an hour flies by in these discussions. I do want to thank everybody for being here and want to respect your time and keep it to as close to an hour as possible. Marie, I want to thank you for being on and sharing your perspectives today. Ed, also thanks to you for being here and representing SBDC as well. Thanks everybody for being here. I'm going to share my screen one last time. If you want to reach out to any of us at the right place, you can do so via our website right there. We also have resources on there, everything from sources for acquiring PPE from local suppliers to different types of reopening playbooks for different types of businesses and that sort of thing. So feel free there. And then tomorrow is our last one of these virtual roundtables. We are focusing on rural tourism post-COVID-19. Dave Lorenz, the VP of Travel Michigan, is going to be on the call to kind of talk all things tourism. So looking forward to that discussion tomorrow. So Marie, any closing thoughts from your perspective?
No, certainly we're here to assist. I guess how I would close it. So if you're struggling with different things, reach out to the Small Business Development Center and the other resources that are available to you for assistance. So,
Travis, can I say one last thing?
Sure, go for it.
There's a new grant and loan program that just opened today from a group called Michigan Women's Forward. You can go to their website at MIWF, as in Frank, .org, MIWF, as in Frank.org. Look for the Resilience Fund. It's right on their front page. They're doing grants up to $5,000 and loans from $5,000 to $10,000. Just opened up today. They got $1.5 million through some sources through the state and other resources, and you may be able to tap into that for some of your needs. So it's going to go fast, so check it out today. And get an app in if you think you qualify.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ed, for that. Definitely appreciate it. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Have a great day. Enjoy the sunshine out there. Be safe. Take care. We'll see you
Bye,
later.
everyone.
Bye.